following show is controversial and contains content you may find offensive. Listener discretion is advised.
98FM's Dublin Talks. Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy.
Good morning, it's 98FM's Dublin Talks. The penultimate show of the week, second last. I just found out what that word meant actually today, so I'm going to use it a lot. It is the penultimate show of the week. Thursday, 23rd of May, 2019. This is Jeremy Dixon with you until midday today with Thursday's edition of Dublin Talks. I hope you're all enjoying your Thursday so far, and make sure you keep it here with 98FM for the next 2 hours, because boy, have we got a show lined up for you today. Quite a mixed bag of stuff. We have everything thrown in there in the next 2 hours, some of which I'm sure you will find interesting. First of all, the ways to contact us. It is a phone-in show. It's a listener participation show. We rely on your participation, your feedback, your comments on topics that we discuss. And these are the ways that you can contact us. You can text or WhatsApp us on 087 798 9898. 087 798 9898 is our text or WhatsApp number. You can also send a WhatsApp voice note to that same number if you can't get to the phone. Once again, 087 798 9898. Or better still, call us on 6797 981. Now, coming up in the first hour of today's show. Well, in a moment, I'm sure you'll all be aware of the story. You heard it there on 98FM News as well. In the space of 24 hours, two best friends, from what it seems, are gunned down and killed. And even though we've become quite desensitized, I think, over the last couple of years to gangland killings, because there seems to be one every second week in this city of ours and in the country. In fact, this has shocked people because of the nature of it. The fact that these two individuals knew each other. Just before the second person, Jordan Davis, was shot in broad daylight yesterday, he'd posted on his Facebook page to talk about his friend who'd been gunned down a few hours previous. And literally, after Jordan Davis posted on his Facebook page, hours later, he himself was gunned down while he pushed a pram with his 4-month-old child, which is just, it really is abhorrent. It really is to think that the people that carry out these shootings have absolutely no respect for life or for the safety of others. Anyway, in a moment, I'll be bringing you the latest update on that with a crime correspondent. Also, while talking about crime, and this is something that I hope this is a woman. I want to give you the background to this. This is a woman that we've wanted to talk to on the show for the last couple of weeks, and we finally managed to pin her down. She lives in the United States, so there was a problem with time zones and stuff like that, but we've managed to pin her down, and she will be talking on Dublin Talks this morning during the first hour of the show. And she is one of the few women who managed to survive an attack by notorious serial killer Ted Bundy. Now, you all know who Ted Bundy is. The movie about his life is in the cinema at the moment with Zac Efron. A lot of you will have seen the documentary that was on Netflix and still is on Netflix, the Ted Bundy tapes. You all know who he is. You all know what he did, what he admitted to doing. And very few people that came in contact with this monster managed to survive. We'll be talking to one woman who did survive an encounter with Ted Bundy, but it left her with scars, horrific scars, and she'll be telling us her story in about 45 minutes' time. Also, she managed to testify against him in court and was one of several people responsible for putting Ted Bundy away, which of course then ended up being executed and put to death. We'll be talking to her in the next hour as well. And on a lighter note, it's a dilemma that I'm having, and it's something probably that you can all relate to, and that is holiday homes. And a neighbour of mine who has offered myself and my family a week in their holiday home in Gorey. And I don't know whether to take it or not. It's something we all did as kids, and I'm going to find out if it is still a thing. Is taking a holiday in Ireland, staying in a mobile home, is it still a big thing? You know, where you go down to the caravan and down to Gorey or Kilmuckridge or Arklow, wherever the case may be, or Bettystown, are they still as popular as they were when we were kids? My childhood was literally going to a holiday home caravan in Arklow, and I absolutely loved it. But have we moved on from that now? Have we become a bit snobbish with our foreign posh holidays? Do you own a holiday home, a mobile home somewhere in Ireland? We'll be talking about that as well. And just before 11 o'clock, the fascination and the obsession that people have with wanting to buy property in Dublin. There's lots more besides coming up between now and midday today. It's 98FM's Dublin Talks.
98FM's Dublin Talks. Call 6797 981.
Now, the headlines of all the papers today, well, they're all focused on that one story. The Irish Sun newspaper, Best Pals Whacked. And of course, this is the story of two individuals, two young Dublin men who were shot in the last 24 hours, shot and killed. It's quite shocking, as I was saying, because they happened to know each other. It appeared that they were friends. One of them posted up on Facebook page mourning the death of his friend, and little did he know that a few hours later he himself would be gunned down in broad daylight. Joining us on the line to give us some background to this and give us some perspective on to what's happened in the last 24 hours is crime editor with the Irish Sun newspaper, Stephen Breen. You're very welcome along to 98FM's Dublin Talk, Stephen.
Thanks, Jeremy.
It's been a very eventful 48 hours in Dublin. I see the headlines in your newspaper today. Best Pals Whacked. A drug dealer was blasted to death yesterday, just 10 minutes after he paid tribute to his murdered pal. What can you tell us about both these murders that took place?
Well, I think that the incidents that happened in this last 48 hours are a stark reminder of the threat posed by organised criminal gangs in our society here. On Tuesday night, Gardaí received information that a car had been seen on fire just off Junction 5 of the M1 in Walshestown. The Gardaí responded to that incident, and when they arrived, they noticed a man's body beside the car. The emergency services were also there, and they noticed that the individual had gunshot wounds to the head and chest. So immediately a full-blown murder investigation was launched in relation to this incident. The following day, the young man's identity was confirmed, and he's someone who's from the Coolock area, someone who has connections to organised crime in Finglas, Ballymun and other areas of North Dublin. And the investigation was launched to establish a motive for this incident. But just a number of hours later, on Wednesday at 3 p.m, a friend of this young man's, Jordan Davis, posted a Facebook post paying tribute to him. But yet, just an hour later, Davis was out walking with a 4-month-old baby in a buggy, and he was approached by a gunman, and he was also shot dead. So now, within the space of like 16, 17 hours, the Gardaí are investigating a double murder.
I saw the Facebook post that Jordan Davis had put up about his friend, saying rest in peace or whatever the post said. And as you said, it's quite chilling that literally a matter of hours after he posted that on his own Facebook page, he himself had been gunned down in quite shocking circumstances. The people that are carrying out these attacks and these murders, they obviously go by no rules. I mean, the fact that fire was opened while a baby was present is quite shocking, isn't it?
Well, they just don't care, and they are reckless. And if you look on Tuesday as well, the Gardaí's Drugs Organised Crime Bureau did a significant arms seizure when they recovered another submachine gun. And even since 2015, over 100 firearms have been recovered by Gardaí. But despite this success, you'd still have these criminal gangs who have access to weapons. They are prepared to use them. And look, innocent people have lost their lives before as part of gangland feuds. But to go out with the intent with a gun in broad daylight and shoot someone, as they push a 4-month-old child, just shows you how brazen and how evil these criminal gangs are, and how determined they are. I mean, they didn't seem to care. There was always, the threat that the Gardaí could be on patrol, and that they don't seem to care because they have the access to the weapons, and they've used them many times in the past where innocent people have been caught up in this, and it's only a matter of time before it happens again.
Now, both deceased, Sean Little and Jordan Davis, you're saying they were known to Gardaí. Were they small players, or what do we know about their background?
Yeah, both well known. And for example, when you look at Sean Little and Jordan Davis as well, I mean, they have connections to organised crime, especially in the Coolock and the North Dublin areas. But they lost another friend last year. Zach Parker was also murdered, and indeed going back to 2017, Jimmy Tagg was murdered. Someone who was very close to them as well. So that's 4 young men, from the north of Dublin. Not even connected to the Kinahan and Hutch feud. This is something different, where you do have young men who are actively involved in the drugs trade. We've seen photographs of especially Sean Little flaunting his wealth, and associating with young criminals in North Dublin who would have connections to the Kinahan cartel. So they were known as being involved in the drugs trade, especially in North Dublin. I spoke to a resident there yesterday who indicated that Jordan Davis was also well known in Coolock and had perhaps amassed a significant drugs debt. And that's what the local community are saying, that this is why he may have been targeted, even by people known to him.
So there seems to be some confusion among members of the public as to what feud this is. Obviously everybody knows about the Kinahan and Hutch feud. Is this part of that feud, or is this a separate feud?
No, I think this is separate, but it mightn't even be a feud because it's very early days in the investigation, and this could be, members of Sean Little's own gang, internal housekeeping. They used that term, where Sean Little was found in a remote area. He was in his own car, so did he go there to meet someone he trusted? Clearly he wouldn't have gone there to meet someone that he didn't trust. Was he lured to his death? Davis as well, known to him. So is that part of a feud? It is very early days, but you have a feud in Blanchardstown, you have a feud in Finglas, in Ballymun, in Drogheda, of course, as well. And
sorry, Stephen, is this all turf wars? Is it over drugs?
Well, it's like any feuds that we've seen before. It's all about money, it's all about power, and it's all about turf. But also, many of these guys who are involved in this could be friends one minute, but sworn enemies the next. And organised crime is so fluid, so it is. But when paranoia sets in, the only way that they deal with that is to use violence and to resort to guns. So what we could be dealing with here is another escalation of violence, because you may have friends of Little and Davis who'll seek revenge and bring more guns onto the streets.
Now, the irony of this happening in the last 24 hours is that I had planned to talk to you anyway on the show today about a new book that you have out called Fat Freddy, A Gangster's Life, The Bloody Career of Freddie Thompson, which was written by yourself and is on sale now in shops. Freddie Thompson is a character. We haven't heard a lot about him since he was locked up in 2016. Your book highlights the life of this criminal.
Yeah, well, it starts off on Freddie Thompson's life, and I focused on his life because he is someone who, without question, has been a key player and a central player in organised crime in Ireland since 1997. He's someone who started off, in public order offences, antisocial behaviour, but soon progressed to a very serious enterprise in drug dealing and also in murder. And he came from an ordinary family, a good family, had showed no interest in school. And indeed, I spoke to a former pupil that he was in his class with. Just the other evening, he said he was a bit of a loose cannon. But it's only when he gets involved with other young gangs in the south inner city, they're intimidating people, abusing residents. But when his best friend Declan Gavin is killed in 2001, that's when he takes control of that gang, because even though he was 21, Gavin was heavily involved in the drugs trade and bringing a lot of drugs into the country. So Thompson took control of that gang, and from then onwards, he soon built up a reputation for violence. And so from 1987 to his conviction in 2018, he led a life of crime that brought nothing but misery and mayhem, not just in Ireland, but also across Europe.
Yeah, there's one quote in the book: over the next 20 years, this career criminal would be marked by mayhem, brutality and murder. What type of person was or is Freddie Thompson?
Well, I was speaking to different people when I was compiling the book. People saw him as someone who didn't have much intelligence and was also someone who had no interest in human life, showed extreme levels of violence, was obsessed with his own ego, was determined to become, a huge criminal and to play on this in the same line as the Viper Foley or Martin Cahill. So he'd often have interactions with Gardaí where he would boast about his exploits. And at one occasion he did say, look, when you guys need to be careful in your bed at night, because I'm going to be the next best thing, and you're going to be busy then. So even from that age, he did display extraordinary levels of arrogance and bravado, and that soon blossomed in the south inner city, and indeed across Dublin, because of the amount of murders that were taking place when he got involved in the Crumlin Drimnagh feud. And that's where he built up his area of expertise. It was in logistics, it was in personnel, and it was about organising murder and mayhem, and that's what he specialised in.
In fact, I was reading a story written by yourself, I think, a couple of weeks ago about love letters that he's been sending to his childhood sweetheart. What can you tell me about those?
Yeah, again, that's a different side to Freddie Thompson, and like many of those involved in organised crime, they have no compassion. They have no love for any human life. They don't care about that. But when it comes to those close to them, they display extreme levels of loyalty. And that's what he did in this case when he was serving a sentence for stabbing a man with a screwdriver. And during his time in prison, he obviously had time to contemplate and to reflect on life. And he penned these letters and he sent them to his then girlfriend, where he had committed to devoting himself to her, to their son, and to leaving behind the life of crime and perhaps even leaving Ireland. But when he was released from prison, they were hollow words, because as soon as he was released, he was back into criminality, back into organising more mayhem and more murders.
Would you say, obviously in the job you do, you write about a lot of different criminals. How high up in the pecking order would Freddie Thompson be as regards career criminals?
Yeah, but when we talk about people like the General, people like John Gilligan, being notorious criminals over the years, and I think Freddie Thompson is up there because in the book, I highlight how in 2008 he was involved in a feud with Declan Wacker Duffy, who was a senior INLA figure. And at that time, he was brought over to Spain by the Kinahan cartel. Now, he would have grown up with the Kinahan cartel, senior members. He would have had some of his cousins, Liam Byrne, David Byrne, were part of that gang as well. And when he was brought up over there, he was given weapons training, bodyguard training, anti-surveillance training. So he was elevated within that organisation to have a position of gun running and also involved in drugs. So he was a very, very senior figure. And even when we were looking at my previous book on the cartel, Spanish investigation files under Operation Shovel linked him as just being a step below the senior leaders of the Kinahan cartel. So he did have a major role to play there. And in Dublin as well, he had a group of young men around him who were willing to follow orders. And he also followed orders as well from the Kinahan gang. So because of his notoriety, because of his involvement stretching over 2 decades, there's no question that he had a senior role to play in criminality in Ireland.
So I would imagine there's a lot of information in this book regarding the crimes that he was suspected of over that 20 years period. Now, in 2016, saw the murder of David Douglas. And I think that was in July of 2016.
July 1st.
Yeah, and following a lengthy Garda investigation, he was, of course, sentenced to life for his role in that feud killing. Was there a vacuum left when he was finally taken off the streets and given that life sentence? Was there a vacuum left by his absence, on who filled that vacuum, or has anybody filled that vacuum?
Well, first of all, I'd like to point out it was a fantastic investigation by the Gardaí in Kemp Street under Chief Superintendent Paul Cleary and his team. And really, what happened on that occasion, where you had Thompson playing a key role in orchestrating and masterminding the murder of an individual who they believed was involved with the Hutch gang. And Thompson's role that day was to drive in a car in convoy with the hitman and the getaway driver. But because of his arrogance, perhaps, and because of his bravado over the years, where he'd never been arrested for murder, he probably thought he could get away with this because he was caught on CCTV. He left DNA evidence behind. And even that night of the murder, he was caught on CCTV celebrating a man losing his life when he went to a restaurant in town with his cohorts and enjoyed a slap-up meal, which was essentially a murder debrief. But he left Ireland then after that. He wasn't caught until November 1st, 2016, was charged charged in relation to the Tahi Douglas murder, but even when he was being interviewed by the Gardaí, and I think this is important as well, where the guard said to him, "You used to think you were King Dingaling, you're not anymore, you're not top dog anymore, the Kinahans are, it's not the same as it was 10 years ago." So perhaps his arrest was signifying his downfall in terms of his position within organised crime. But he still fought against any possible charges. He still went for bail, but despite going to court and thinking he was going to get off because of his arrogance, he was convicted. And when he was in prison, and when people like him go to prison, there's always someone else to step into the fold to fill the vacuum. And although Thompson's position was to target people as part of the Kinahan Hutch feud, when he went to prison when he was arrested in November 2016, people were still being killed by the Kinahan cartel because they had the resources and the money to recruit other hitmen. So there's no question that even though he is off the scene, and it's a fantastic result for the Gardaí, for the people of the South Inner City, for the business community, for local residents who were terrorised by him, that because he's now serving a life sentence, that's welcome news. But there are others who will step into the fold and try and fill that vacuum.
And in fact, we've seen that in the last 24 hours that, we still have a huge issue with gangland murders in this city. The book is fascinating. It's called Fat Freddy, A Gangster's Life, The Bloody Career of Freddie Thompson. You can buy it now. I'm halfway through it at the moment, and it really is. It's a fascinating insight into the life of a career criminal. Stephen Breen, thanks very much for joining us on 98FM's Dublin Talks.
Thank you, Jeremy.
98FM's Dublin Talks. Call 6797 981.
Now, after the break, something slightly different. Are mobile home holidays still a thing?
98FM's
Dublin Talks
with Des Kelly Interiors. For all the latest trends in carpets, vinyls and wood flooring. Des Kelly Interiors, where quality flooring costs less.
98FM.
It's 98FM's Dublin Talks with Jeremy Dixon here for a Thursday morning. Now, it's something we've never spoken about on the show, but it's something that every single Irish person listening right now can relate to, because chances are, if you were a child in the 70s and 80s and maybe even the 90s, your summer holidays as a child consisted of getting into the car or on the bus with your family as soon as the school holidays kicked off, and heading down to places like Arklow, Kilmuckridge, Kirklow, where else? Silver Strand has another one as well. Or maybe you went north, maybe you went to Bettystown. What am I talking about? I'm talking about mobile home holidays, and I'll tell you why I'm talking about this. Our neighbours yesterday offered us, myself and the family, offered us their mobile home in Gorey for a week in June. So they bought one a couple of years ago. I didn't even know they had one, to be honest, and I was quite surprised when they told me they had one. So they have a mobile home down in Gorey in County Wexford, and we got talking about it, and they said, well, listen, Jeremy, why don't you can have the mobile home for a week in June. It's free that time. Why don't you head down to Gorey, bring the family and stay in our mobile home? We won't be there. And I thought to myself, I haven't been on a mobile home holiday since I was a kid. My childhood was Arklow. We'd go to Arklow, and I bloody loved it, as I'm sure a lot of you did. And it got me thinking, have we moved on, or are they still a thing? Does anybody, well, obviously some people do. You have mobile home car parks or parks all over the place. Do you own a mobile home? And if so, do you use it? How big is it still, this whole mobile home holiday thing? Was it something that was left in the 70s and 80s, or is it still a thing? Have you been on a mobile home holiday, and should I go? I have to be honest, I thought and this maybe sounds a bit snobbish, but I thought we'd moved on from mobile homes, and now because package holidays to Spain are so cheap, we don't need them anymore. Now, from my son's point of view, he wouldn't care where we went in June. He wouldn't care if we went to Barcelona for a week or we went to Gorey for a week, because kids don't care. It's the parents who care. I'd like to hear from you. 6797 981 is our telephone number. You can text or WhatsApp your comments to 0877 98 98 98. Mobile home holidays. Are they still a thing? Are they as popular as they were in the 80s? And if you own a mobile home, I would love to hear from you. Text or WhatsApp 0877 98 98 98. Let's go to Crumlin next. Lisa, how are you?
How are you?
Now, you don't have a mobile home in Crumlin, do you?
I did, yes, down in Ayrton site in Cork Town.
Yeah, no, I was thinking it wasn't in Crumlin. You went to Cork. You went to Cork Town, which was a very popular spot in the 70s and 80s. Did you own the mobile home?
I did. When the recession was on, we had a mobile home, and unfortunately, we had to sell it, pass it on.
And how much did it cost you?
Well, when I bought it, at the time it was 10,000.
Really, is that how much they are?
Yes, that's going back. I have two girls and my daughter. They are young at the time. I said, I'll buy it. It'd be somewhere to go. It'd be cheap, Spain and the whole lot. So we then had to sell it because we couldn't carry it on. But there was rent, you had to pay for the site and the whole lot, which worked out about 2,000 a year.
So that's much to keep it on a mobile home on the site as well.
On the site, yeah.
But that includes, as far as I can remember, it includes the electricity, doesn't it?
No.
Oh, does it not?
Electricity,
oh.
No, the electricity came separate. Yes, we had to pay for electricity separate every year when we were paying then for the ground rent.
Now, how many kids did you have at the time? How many kids did you bring down with you?
I had me two daughters, and then my mother and father used to come every week, and my husband.
And how many did it sleep, this mobile home?
Well, I had 3 bedrooms. It was a big bedroom, then there was a light bedroom and a little box bedroom.
Okay.
But we all fit, to be honest with you. We made way to fit.
Well, to be honest, it sounds bigger than my gaff, your mobile home.
It did. It was bigger than my own house.
And did the kids enjoy it? That's the thing, because obviously kids nowadays, when we were growing up, foreign holidays just weren't a thing. We went on the odd foreign holiday. Nowadays, kids, they're going to, my young fella's been to Florida already. That's something that wasn't around for me when I was his age. Do kids enjoy a mobile home holiday?
Oh, they do, because I tell you, to be honest with you, my children love going out on their little bikes, going up and down the site, and to be honest with you, I used to love going down the mobile myself to have the ice cream. That's all I went mad for.
Simpler times.
I drive down now at the minute to get an ice cream because their ice cream is massive in Wexford.
Where, in Cork Town?
In Cork Town, yes. The little chaos.
I know it well, yeah. I was down there.
Yeah.
I was down there a couple of weeks ago at the Pirates Cove thing in Cork Town. They have this Pirates Cove.
That's right, yeah.
And I brought the young fella down there because Cork Town as well was my childhood. And people would snub it now and they'd laugh at it. But Cork Town was a great old spot. And it still is, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yes. It's loads for the children to do down there.
So you're going to buy a new mobile home?
Well, to be honest with you, I couldn't afford it now. And I'd love to, because my two girls keep saying, it's sold at mobile now. We could be down there every weekend.
Oh, really?
It'd be a holiday.
The girls would love to go down, would they?
Oh, yes. And I have a 23-year-old, and she's nearly 18. Matter of fact, she's graduating from St. Louis School in Rathmines today.
Oh, very good. Congratulations. What's her name?
Yeah, it's Sophie.
Sophie. And it's her last day in school before she gets a bit of time off for the exams.
Yes. So it's an emotional day.
Well, I'll let you go. Have you got a holiday booked for this year, or...?
No, I haven't. I'd love to have, to be honest with you.
Yeah, well,
if I was, I'd be going to Wexford.
Well, you can take my neighbour's mobile home in Gorey if I don't take them up on the offer. Thanks very much for your call, Lisa. Let me go to Mark. How are you, Mark, who's on the M50? How are things?
How you doing, Jeremy? How are you?
Now, you're claiming that mobile home holidays are a thing of the past, are they?
Yeah, well, just for kind of the younger generation, I'd say that you don't want to go away with parents because it's not cool enough to be posted on Instagram and get all their likes and so on. So I think it's just a certain generation that still do it. With younger generation, they all want to go to these other cool places so they can put them up on Instagram and all that kind of stuff. You
make a very valid point. When people go away on holidays now, the first thing they do is they post photographs on Instagram or Facebook or whatever of them sitting by the pool in a nice swanky resort in Spain or Italy. But I can't see somebody checking in at the Cork Town mobile home park on Instagram, can you?
No, not at all. I have a friend who travels with work and all he does is check into these 5-star hotels for a meeting, but then you wouldn't hear from one end of the week to the other when he's just doing normal stuff,
So you wouldn't go on if I've been offered this, and I don't want to be insulting to them because they could be listening to the show, and they've shown me photographs of their mobile home and it looks absolutely beautiful. It's a I think it's called a 3-berth, so 3 beds, mobile home. It has satellite TV in it, the whole lot. You don't think I should go down to Gorey for a week in June?
Well, if your kids are small, I would. Personally, I've only been at one in Wales. Last year, I went kind of done a mobile home in Italy. I don't know if it's the same thing or not, So
that's slightly posher than Cortown or Kilmuckridge, isn't it?
Yeah, but if it's for a week and it's not going to cost you a lot of money, sometimes the mobile homes are just as expensive as a week away in Spain.
Yeah, I just don't know what you would do for a week in Gorey, to be honest with you. Now, I can't remember, because I was a kid, I can't remember what we did for a week in Arklow as kids. I can't remember how we spent our time. But what the hell would I do for a week in Gorey?
No idea. Most of the towns are empty nowadays.
No, that's the thing. Gorey is a lovely town and all that, but there's not much going on in it. Thank you, Mark. Let me go to Tina. How are you, Tina? You're on 98FM.
Hey, I'm good, yeah.
Now, it says on my screen you have a holiday home. Is that a posh word for a mobile home, or is it actually...
Yeah.
Oh, it is?
Yeah,
okay,
no.
That's what we call them.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a caravan in the country.
Yeah, that's it.
It's in Dublin, is it?
Yeah, County Dublin.
Oh, where is it? Or can you tell me?
Yeah, in Rush.
Oh, Rush, which is very popular for mobile homes. And when did you buy it?
I bought it last year, but I'm down here now. I don't go home because my kids are small, so I'm getting the best out of it that I can now. Because if I go on a sun holiday, I'm literally just at a pool. I can't go on excursions or out with them because they're too small. So I'm literally stuck at a pool all day watching my kids. I can't drink. I can't do out with them. So the sun holiday is just nothing for me. So I'd rather bring my kids down here where they're able to run out in a field. They have a sand pit, slide. The gates are locked. They can just do off. I'm still sitting there in the mobile watching them, but they love it. They cry when they have to go home.
Now, so you're actually on holidays in Rush at the moment with you and your 2 kids, just you and your 2 kids in the mobile home, and they're having a great time, are they?
Yeah, brilliant, yeah.
Now, I'm looking out the window here, and in the centre of Dublin, it's very dark and overcast at the moment. What's it like in Rush? I would imagine it's quite the same, is it?
Yeah, it's a bit overcast, yeah, but it's warm enough.
And how long?
It's not cold.
How long are you going to be there for? For the whole summer? Or?
Yeah.
No way.
You won't see me till September till my kids are starting school.
Ah, stop. You're going to spend the whole summer in the mobile home in Rush?
Yeah.
And would you not get bored?
Not really, no. No, not really. There's nobody else down here on the site but just me and my kids. But on the weekends, all the other kids come down.
And
so
then,
obviously the older kids are in school.
Yeah, and then of course, as soon as the schools finish up for the summer, the place will be packed. How many caravans or many mobile? They don't like using the word caravans anymore. How many mobile homes are on the site?
I think there's between around 30 and 40, but there does be full. Easter weekend, it was absolutely packed. They had the Easter Bunny big party and all on the site and all for all the kids and all.
Deadly.
Easter eggs given out free to all the kids and everything. They all loved it.
Wow, so that's you till September, sorted. And can you cook in the mobile home?
Oh yeah, we have everything in the mobile. I'm literally in the process of getting new windows, double glazed windows at the moment, because when I bought the caravan it was a bit drafty, the windows were, so I kind of had to do it for the kids. So I'm out for the day now just while the windows are going in, but as soon as they're back now, it'll be like a new mobile. Okay, you know what I want you to do, Tina? Ring us during the summer after a couple of, at the end of June, I want you to ring us in one of the mornings on the show and tell us how you're getting on, because I'd imagine at that stage the walls will be closing in on you. Or will you be still happy? No, I'll be still happy. I'm down here since March. I was coming down every weekend, and I've been down here the last 2 weeks full solid. I still haven't been home yet. I went home once to do washing. That's it. She has washing machines on the site and all. Brilliant. Shed, but I don't use them. I go home and do all my washing and then bring it back once a week. You know what? A holiday is what you make it, and you're having a ball, and the kids in the background, I can hear, having a ball as well. Enjoy, Tina. I will. Thanks very much. Cheers. Bye-bye. It wouldn't be for a lot of people, but listen to Tina. She sounds genuinely happy, and the kids are delighted as well. So she's spending the whole summer until September in Rush. Now, after the break, I'm going to go to Martin, who lives beside a caravan park. How are you, Martin?
How's it going, Jeremy?
I'm going to talk to you. You're going to give us an insight into this whole mobile home holiday thing. He lives in a caravan park beside Kilmuckridge, which our Pat, his childhood was spent in Kilmuckridge in County Wexford. And then we're going to talk to Caroline as well, who had a holiday home in Rush for 50 years. I mean, I always thought if you're going to buy a holiday home, buy it kind of far away from your house. Rush is only half an hour from my house, so it wouldn't really feel like a holiday. Don't go away. It's 98FM's Dublin Talks.
98FM's
Dublin Talks.
With Des Kelly Interiors. For all the latest trends in carpets, vinyls and wood flooring. Des Kelly Interiors. Where quality flooring costs less.
98FM.
It's 98FM's Dublin Talks, and we're talking about something that was synonymous with your childhood if you grew up in Ireland, and that was the mobile home holiday, and an offer that's been given to me by neighbours to stay in their mobile home in Gorey for a week, which we're sort of debating at the moment. Let's have a listen to this WhatsApp voice note.
Yeah, we do the mobile home thing every year with the kids. No, not in Ireland now. Wouldn't like a holiday in this country.
Oh.
But yeah, we do it in Spain. All the campsites around Spain. Absolutely fantastic. Can't fault it. Brilliant. Doing it years.
Yeah, in fact, I was in Cambrils in Spain on the Costa Dorado there last year for summer holidays, and we were staying in a hotel, but it's a huge camping area, and the amount of people that were camping and caravanning in Spain was absolutely unbelievable. Now, Martin, you live beside Caravan Park in Kilmuckridge.
Yeah.
And you work in the restaurant there, is that right?
I do indeed, yeah.
And are they flying Caravan Park still?
Yeah, I've been living down here now in Kilmuckridge for about 8 years, and I was like you, I thought caravan park holidays were out of fashion, but June every year this village springs into life. It really does, you know, with the caravan parks to be absolutely packed until the end of August, you know.
And it's all families, I assume, is it? It's people with young kids, is it?
Yeah, people from all walks of life and all different nationalities. Like just there the last bank holiday weekend, the place was absolutely packed, and people from all different places coming into the restaurant, you know. It's really popular, you know.
And do you think it will ever die? Did it die down at any stage during the recession? Did it die down?
Well, I came down here to live in 2011, and it seems to be the same every year. It's just, it's a really sleepy village through the winter time and all, but as soon as June comes along, it's absolutely mental. The population of the town seems to triple almost, you know. I love
Kilmuckridge. I love Wexford as well. I don't know about Gorey, though. Do you think I should spend the week in Gorey in June?
I wouldn't go to Gorey now, you know. But
okay.
So, anywhere else really, like
anywhere but Gorey. Anywhere but Gorey. Thanks, Martin, and the best of luck this summer. What's the restaurant called, by the way? I'll have to pop in the next time.
The Deck.
The Deck in Kilmuckridge. Very good. Thanks, Martin.
See you now.
Cheers. Let me go to Clondalkin next, finally. And Caroline, how are you, Caroline?
How are you?
How are you? You had a holiday home for 50 years in Rush.
Well, my mum and dad had a holiday.
Yeah, I was thinking you're not old enough to own a holiday home for 50
years. No, down in Rush. But I was down there for 50 years. And brilliant summers. We used to pack the car up. There were 7 of us, 7 kids.
Brilliant.
My mum and dad packed the car up in June, and we wouldn't be back till September. And we went crab fishing. We went down to the beach. Even if it was raining, you went down to the beach. In fact, I don't even remember it being raining. We had such good times.
And it probably was, but we never remembered the bad weather when we were kids. Sure.
No. We had sandwiches, literally sandwiches, down at the beach, down the harbour. We swam. We did life-saving. We had jobs picking tomatoes. It was a simple life, but it was brilliant times.
Yeah, none of your Floridas, none of your Orlandos or anything like that. Yeah, it was just...
Oh, it was brilliant times, brilliant.
And you got rid of it, did you?
My mum and dad are elderly, so unfortunately we had to get rid of it because we all work, so you couldn't go down, you know what I mean? And to avail of a caravan site now, it does cost, as that girl said, over 2,000. So you'd really want to be going down for the summer.
Yeah, and people I know that have one, they literally, if they're not working, they go down, and at the weekends they go down on a Friday, and they'll literally spend every weekend down there. But you'd only be going regularly.
Oh yeah, and it's brilliant for children. Simple things.
Okay, should I go to Gorey? Should I go to Gorey for a week?
Absolutely, and get a fishing rod and do crab fishing. Your child will love it.
Okay, crab fishing.
Go.
Okay, I will. Okay, I will. Thanks, Caroline. She's convinced me. Well, I have to convince herself now, the missus, because she was saying the last time when she was a kid and she used to go there, the caravan was full of earwigs, and she hates earwigs. So I assume they got rid of the earwig problem. Hi, I decided to relive my childhood 3 years ago and go to Tramore. Oh, used to love Tramore as a kid as well. It was the worst week I ever spent anywhere. The mobile home was disgusting. No heat, musty smell, blankets that looked like they were there since the 1960s. They probably were. The caravan park was supposed to be there 40 years. Well, I can vouch for that. Spent the first day cleaning and buying stuff. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll stay away from Tramore. Okay, gory it is. Thank you.
98FM's Dublin Talks. Call 6797 981.
It is 98FM's Dublin Talks. I hope you're enjoying the show. My name is Jeremy Dixon. We're with you until midday today. Now, coming up next, something very interesting that I know a lot of you will be interested about. I will give you a slight warning, though. Some of the details which we're about to reveal, if you're a bit sensitive, I'll just warn you about that, because I'm about to talk to a woman on the show. And she's unique in that she's one of the few people who managed to survive an attack by notorious serial killer Ted Bundy. Now, you all know who Ted Bundy is. He's been all over the news over the last couple of years. Well, since it came out, the movie came out on the documentary, and the movie that's still in the cinema at the moment. Of course, Ted Bundy was a serial killer, a necrophile, a kidnapper, raped and murdered numerous young women in the 1970s. And one of the few women who managed to survive an encounter with Ted Bundy was the woman I'm about to speak to in a moment. And her name, well, you've probably seen her being interviewed several, she did interviews in the United States. Kathy Kleiner is her name, and she joins us on the line now to tell us her story. You're very welcome along to 98FM's Dublin Talks, Kathy. How are you?
Thank you.
I have to say it's a pleasure to talk to you. I've admired what you've done. I've been reading up on your stories over the last couple of weeks as we've been contacting each other back and forth to arrange this interview. And you've done a lot of interviews around the world. Do you ever get fed up talking about Ted Bundy or what happened to you?
Actually, I don't. Each time I talk and tell my story, I seem to heal myself, because it's not something I'm scared of. It's something I understand and something I can talk about. So actually, I don't mind anymore. In the beginning, I did, but now I find it very healing. When I first was attacked, it was, like I said, a little difficult. But then I understood, if I read about who Ted Bundy was, and I tried to understand him as a person, and then as the demon that he was, it seemed to help me to know that there were two separate entities to him, and that it wasn't all bad. He portrayed and wanted people to believe he was good as well.
So let's go back to 1978. You were asleep in your Florida sorority house. For those of us, we don't have sorority houses here, but so I'll explain to our listeners that it's like an on-campus sort of living quarters where you would live when you're in college. Is that correct?
It is a campus. Yes, you can live there. A sorority is a group of women who have compatible interest. There are several sororities that was on the on the FSU campus. Chi Omega was one of them. There were 6 or 7 different sororities around FSU.
So that day in particular, 1978, you were asleep in your Florida sorority house. What age were you at the time, Kathy?
I just turned 20.
Ted Bundy, from what I believe, this is either his second or his third escape, so he was on the run at that time. Is that right?
I understand that now. I did not understand at the time. I didn't know who Ted Bundy was. I was in college. I was in the sorority. I was having fun, and Ted Bundy was not on my radar. I don't know if many women followed that as far as who he was and what he was doing.
So take us back to that night in 1978, if you will. You're asleep in your bed in your sorority. What happened?
Being asleep, I heard our bedroom door open. Now, the sorority had several rooms that we lived in. Each room had 2 people in them. So in my room, I had Karen, was my roommate. Our room was rather small, like a dormitory room. As I'm sleeping, I hear a noise, which happens to be someone opening our bedroom door. It woke me up a little bit, kind of brought me out of a deep sleep. And then between our our twin beds, which were parallel against each wall. We had a little trunk, a small trunk that had our sisters and different things in it. It was about 3 feet long and about 3 feet high.
There was 2 beds in the sorority room, your bed and Karen's bed. There was a trunk on the ground in between both beds.
Correct. After I heard our bedroom door open a little bit, Ted Bundy tripped over that trunk because it was so dark in our room. He couldn't see what was going on. Now that woke me up completely. I'm laying in bed, still confused, not knowing what that noise was. And I looked and I saw someone standing next to my bed. It was dark, as I said, and this person was dressed in dark clothes. He had a dark knit cap on, dark jacket. When I looked, I saw him raise his arm above his head. He was holding something in his arm, in his hand, which I found out later to be a log, a piece of firewood that he had picked up from outside. As I looked, he struck me in the face with the log. I felt it was a numb feeling. It wasn't very, it didn't hurt right away. It didn't feel like pain. It just felt like
it was full force. He hit you with full force,
yes,
did he?
Yes.
I'm sorry for cutting across you, Kathy, but please stay there for a second because I need to take a quick break. It's 98FM's Dublin Talks. We're talking to Kathy Kleiner, one of the very lucky woman to have survived attack by notorious serial killer Ted Bundy. And we'll talk to her more straight after the break. Don't go away. It's 98FM's Dublin Talks with Jeremy Dixon here for a Thursday morning, and Georgie's here with the top stories.
Thanks, Jeremy. Good morning. The Taoiseach says we need to continue to be vigilant and support the Gardaí in tackling organised crime. It comes after 2 murders in Dublin within 24 hours. 2 men in their 20s were shot dead in Darndale and Walshestown. It's understood the 2 men were friends, and Gardaí are investigating whether the incidents are linked. 2 watches have been seized along with documentation, mobile phones, computers and hard drives in West Dublin. It's part of ongoing investigations by CAB, supported by Armed Support Unit this morning. The operation is targeting an organised crime group. And a stretch of the US coastline, which inspired the movie Jaws, has seen the arrival of a large shark not unlike the fictional creature from the film. The great white is nearly 10 feet long and weighs around 500 pounds. Researchers who tagged the shark last year say it's not normally seen in the area. Now you're up to date on 98.
98FM's Dublin Talks with Adrian Kennedy.
It's 98FM's Dublin Talks with Jeremy Dixon here for a Thursday morning. I hope you're enjoying the show. We're into the second hour of the show. Coming up in about 15 minutes time or so, we'll be finding out why people are obsessed with wanting to live in Dublin and wanting to own property in Dublin, and the pressure that we are putting ourselves under by being fixated. I have to have a property in Dublin and I don't want to live in Meath and Westmeath or Wicklow or Louth and places like that. A very interesting conversation coming up on that. I'll be asking for your opinions on it. At the moment, we are talking to a woman who survived an attack by notorious serial killer Ted Bundy. As you know, in the last year or so, there's been a renewed interest in all things Ted Bundy. Of course, there was the Netflix documentary, the Ted Bundy confession tapes, that most of you will have watched on Netflix. And then, of course, the movie came out earlier on, last month actually. Extremely Wicked, Shockingly Evil and Vile is the name of the movie. Zac Efron plays Ted Bundy. And the reason it's called that is because that's what the judge described Ted Bundy as: extremely wicked, shockingly evil and vile. He was a killer. He kidnapped, raped and murdered numerous young women and girls during the 1970s and possibly after. Before he was executed, he confessed to over 30 homicides that he committed. And the woman I'm speaking to on the line, Kathy Kleiner, is one of the few women who managed to survive an encounter with Ted Bundy, and she joins me on the line from New Orleans. Now, before the break, Kathy, you were telling us about the night that you were asleep in your bed in your sorority when Ted Bundy arrived in, and I mean, terrifying for any woman to be listening, or anybody for that matter, to wake up and find a figure standing over you in your bedroom. So if you will, please, Kathy, take us up what happened straight after Ted Bundy attacked you.
After I made noise, Karen, my roommate, started to stir. He went just right to Karen's bed, which was just a few feet from mine, and he attacked her. Again, he used the log, the club, and he hit her in the face. I was still making noise, and Ted Bundy did not leave victims. In my mind, I was screaming as loud as I could, asking for help, asking him to stop. But actually, because of my injuries, all I was doing was gurgling. When he attacked me, my injuries included a broken jaw. My jaw was actually shattered and hanging from one joint. Also, he had torn open my cheek so that from my lips up to my ear, the cheek was open. You could see inside my mouth. I also bit my tongue almost off. So these injuries tend to be very hurt. Now it really stung, and it felt like I was hit in the head.
You were lying in your bed, unable to speak because of the horrific injuries that you had sustained from Bundy hitting you with this firewood. Are you looking over at the bed beside you to your friend Karen?
I think I did. The room, as I said, was very dark, and I wanted to keep an eye on whoever this was, because if he was going to strike me again, I wanted to be ready for it. And at that point, he raised his arm again over his head. Just then, we had curtains in the end of our room, at the back of our room, and we left the curtains open because we had plants hanging on the rods for the curtain rods. Our bedroom was on the second floor and faced the back of the house, which is where the parking lot was. Before Bundy could strike me, a car shone up into our bedroom. The lights illuminated the bedroom, so it was very, very bright. And at this point, he thought he was seen. He was spooked. He left our room immediately, thinking I saw him or someone coming home with that light from the car may have seen him. So he ran out of our bedroom, which was on the second floor. He ran down the stairs in the front of the house and ran out the front door. As the light shone up, it illuminated the room so bright. It was such a pleasure, illumination that just felt so good, because I knew that the beatings had stopped because he left.
You firmly believe in your heart that you would have been killed, yourself and Karen would have been killed by Bundy had those lights not shone up into the bedroom that night?
I do believe that because the room was so lit up, it was almost like something was taking care of us. And at that point when he left, I knew I was going to be okay. I knew he wasn't going to hit me again. And then the room turned dark, and I was screaming again as loud as I could, and all I was doing was gurgling.
The description that was given, the person that found you in the room after Bundy escaped said, Kathy was found by a fellow sorority sister sitting cross-legged on her bed, blood pouring from her mouth, rocking back and forth and moaning. Do you remember much of that?
Yes, I do. And I do know there was blood everywhere on my bed sheets, on the walls. It was just everywhere. And I do remember the sorority sister walking in and seeing us and running out the door. And I remember rocking, and I didn't know how long it was until the paramedics came to my side. And I kind of I think at that point I kind of released myself to passing out and to just kind of letting go and letting my feelings kind of ebb out.
So the injuries you sustained from the attack by Bundy, and I'm sure looking back on it now, you know how lucky you were that very few people survived coming in contact with the notorious serial killer. The injuries that you sustained from that attack, how long did it take to recover from those injuries?
Well, to answer your first question, I am still recovering. I continue to have terrible TMJ, which is where your jaw is like very painful and hard to open. When I was in Tallahassee Hospital, I was awake. I do remember a police officer being with me, and it was the same officer that came to my bedside right after the attack. When I was in the hospital, they cleaned up my wounds to see exactly what was wrong, and they took me to the operating room. At that point, they wired my teeth shut. They sewed my cheek together, and my tongue had to be healed by itself. You can't heal a tongue. So my injuries and the pain were so bad at that point.
Still at that point, as you were recovering, you obviously still weren't aware that the man who had attacked you was, and Karen as well, was Ted Bundy and was a notorious serial killer, because of course he hadn't come to trial at this stage. Did they make you aware of who this man was?
They did. It was when he was first caught and put into jail in Pensacola, Florida, as he was leaving the state. I still didn't know who he was. And my parents were shielding me. I watched TV, but it was a lot of soap operas. They did not want me to hear the news and read the newspaper, because they were trying to keep me from knowing exactly what happened to me and to Karen. So once Bundy was caught, about a couple weeks later, I was told who it was and what he did and how he had escaped and made his way to Florida State.
Now, of course, you testified against Bundy in court. Tell us about that.
When he was caught and went, through the court system, part of the process, of course, was the prosecution and the defense in the courtroom in Miami in 1979. At that point, I was in a separate room while he was being talked to by different witnesses while they gave their statement. When it was my turn to be brought into the courtroom, they sat me down on the witness stand. I looked across the room, and there sat Bundy. And I looked at him straight in the eyes as he looked me in the eyes. And I felt I had power now over him. He wasn't someone standing over my bed, and I was someone who was going to put him away. And that gave me such power, and it made me feel strong. As I looked at him, he did not divert his eyes, neither did I. After my testimony, and I was allowed to leave the courtroom, I was I shook a lot, because I had faced the devil, and I was okay, but I was strong then, and afterwards I kind of went, woo, that was weird.
That must have taken some amount of strength, personal strength and inner strength, for you to stand in a courtroom, literally sitting opposite Ted Bundy, the man who had crept into your room and tried to kill you, and to look at Ted Bundy straight in the eye. That must have taken some strength, Kathy.
It did, but I wanted that strength, and I knew I had it, because, again, I wanted to show it over Ted Bundy. I wanted to show him that he didn't kill me, and that what we were doing in the courtroom was going to legally put him away, and that felt good. So the strength it took me to do that and stare at him, it came down from deep within me. I pulled the strength out of my soul. And once you have that strength, no one can take it away from you. So I used that to heal myself, to look at Ted Bundy and to know that I was going to be okay. I was going to survive this.
Now, of course, Bundy was executed in the electric chair in Florida State Prison. I think it was January 1989. How did you and when did you hear that news? Can you remember where you were when you heard the news? You obviously knew he was on death row and it was only a matter of time. But when he was put to death in 1989, where were you?
I was in Boca Raton. I was sitting with my husband. We had gotten word from the district attorney in Tallahassee that this was actually going to be the day that he would be executed. During all those years that he was on death row, he kept getting stays of execution, which is when a judge says, no, he's not going to be executed. He's going to have an appeal and get to look at his trial again and see if there's anything that was wrong that he could get out of the court system. That day, we were told in the morning that he actually was going to be executed. They called, and my husband Scott and I sat in my sofa and waited. And there was so much on TV, both those who wanted to kill him and both who wanted him to live. So each side of the street had both protesters. We heard by a phone call that he had been killed, and I sat on my sofa and I cried. And Scott, my husband, said I was just really moaning and making noises and crying. And when I got through and felt that I had cleansed myself, and my crying was for Margaret and Lisa, the two sorority sisters that he actually killed that night. I was crying for them to be released and to rest at peace. And it wasn't for me I cried, it was for all the victims that now, hopefully, they were at peace.
Do you believe there were more? I think there was around 30 victims that the police were able to identify. Do you believe there were a lot more victims of Bundy?
I do believe that, because in his last months of his death row stay, he was saying there's more, and if you don't kill me, I'll tell you who it was and where they're buried. And he kept doing this over the months to the point where the prosecutor didn't know if he was telling the truth or not. So, yes, I believe there were more victims, and I do believe he knew where they were buried.
Finally, Kathy, over the last year, there's been a documentary on Netflix. There's also been a movie that's still in cinemas at the moment with Zac Efron playing Bundy. Did you watch the miniseries or the movie?
Yes, I've seen both. The tapes on Netflix, there were 4 series during 4 weeks, and I sat down one night and binge watched. I watched 4 of the hours right in a row. The movie, however, I believe the actors played the parts very well, and the actor that played Bundy looked just like him, acted like him. He did a lot of research, so you could see his mannerisms. That movie actually did take you through the victims. It didn't show the violence, but it did name the victims and gave them a face and gave them a life. And there were so many of us as victims that at the end of the movie, they listed all the victims' names, which again gave recognition to them. And
I think that's what Zac Efron said when making the movie. He said, this movie is not for Bundy. It's not about Bundy. This movie is about the victims like yourself. Let me take you to now, to 2019. How are you on a personal level? After someone who survived such an horrific attack that left you with such horrific injuries, to survive an attack by a notorious serial killer, You've been so strong over the years. You've spoken about it openly. How are you now on a personal level?
I am doing great. I've been through other issues in my life for my health and other things. And I remember after the attack, I had physical injuries, but also I wasn't in a good place mentally. I was not having nightmares. I did not feel that I had survivor guilt, but I had other issues. I was afraid of men because, again, we didn't know who had attacked me. It was early in February of 1978. And I remember, because I was kind of scared of men, I went to work in a lumber yard in order to cleanse and heal me. And after I did that, I understood that, I can do this. I can be strong, and I can face my fears. Also, right after the attack, I was scared just in my mind before I had my before my teeth were opened up from being wired shut. And every time I had a scared feeling, I would take a couple steps forward. And I had a goal, and my goal was to get to the beach. Every step I took forward, I looked behind me, and that Bundy was 2 steps behind me. And I continued. It took a while. I continued, and when I got to that beach, I looked around behind me, and I couldn't see Bundy anymore. I had healed myself from the attack at that point. I still had issues. I still had surgeries to go through, which again brought it up to mind. But the scary, ugly beating was so far behind me, taking those steps and getting to the beach, that healed me as well.
Kathy Kleiner, it's been a pleasure talking to you. I know the subject matter was quite disturbing given what happened to you, but it has honestly been a pleasure talking to you. You're someone I have a lot of respect for. I've been following your story over the last couple of years. I think you're very, very brave to be still able to talk about this. And thanks for joining us on 98 FM.
Thank you very much for having me.
Just listening to Kathy from New Orleans, says this texter, that poor woman and her friend, I feel so sick after hearing this, but she's very brave for talking about it and sharing her story. Thanks, Jeremy, for sharing her story. Thank God she is alive today. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure she knows, even though she sustained horrific injuries, I'm sure she realises how lucky she is that she survived the attack by Bundy, because the 2 women who were just in the room across from her, they were killed by him. It's 98 FM's Dublin Talks with Jeremy Dixon here until midday today. After the break, what is our fixation with needing and wanting to live in Dublin? Don't go away.
98 FM's
Dublin Talks
with Des Kelly Interiors. For all the latest trends in carpets, vinyls and wood flooring. Des Kelly Interiors, where quality flooring costs less.
98 FM. This is 98 FM's Dublin Talks. Call 6797 981.
It's Jeremy Dixon here with you until midday today. Now, let's get our teeth into this one. I have a question for you. Are we too obsessed with living in Dublin, or the idea of living in Dublin? Are people putting themselves under too much financial pressure and stress by wanting to live in Dublin and believing that it's the be-all and end-all of life, and if you don't have a property in Dublin, well, you've kind of just failed in life? A listener contacted us via Facebook yesterday about this, and it really caused a debate in our office, all to do with the obsession and the fascination with needing and wanting property in Dublin. His name is Connor, and I want to read out Connor's message that he posted on our Facebook page, and I want to get your opinions on it. Here's what Connor says. I'm just back from dinner with my 2 friends, and we were talking about something that I think you should bring up on your show. By the way, if you want anything brought up on the show, the best way to contact us is on Facebook. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/Adrian K and Jeremy D. Anyway, he goes on to talk about the dinner with his 2 friends. They're both in their early 30s and recently married. They're renting in Shankill at the moment and have saved up a deposit to buy their own place. The only thing is, they only want a property in Dublin, nowhere outside the postcodes of this city, or County Dublin will do. They are obsessed with the notion of living in Dublin. Both of them grew up in Sandyford and their parents still live there. They want to live as close to that area as possible. They said they don't want to live in Meath or the back arse of Wicklow or Louth. I was trying to hammer home to them how scarce properties are in the areas they want. Even if they do get a place, they are going to clear their savings out and put themselves under financial pressure. However, they are dead set on living in the city. There was no change in their minds. They feel that they should be able to live in the area that they grew up in and refuse to consider to move anywhere else. My question is, why do people think it's a failure to live outside Dublin? I get that commuting is not ideal, but living in Meath and Kildare is not the end of the world. Have you seen some of the villages in Meath? No, I'm only joking. Meath is a lovely county, as is Kildare. I think people from Dublin need to get over themselves and accept that living in the city is just not realistic for most people. Am I being too harsh on my mates? And we got that email and we read it amongst ourselves and we thought, wow, that's an interesting conversation, because there does seem to be this fascination with wanting to live in Dublin, and that people won't accept buying property in Meath or Westmeath or Kildare or Wicklow. Why are we so fascinated with wanting to live in Dublin? And are people being unrealistic, expecting that they're going to be able to buy a property that is near where they grew up, or near their ma, or near their mother-in-law, or near the schools that they happen to like? Unless you are a millionaire or very, very lucky, you won't end up living in the exact location that you want to live in. You won't. Supposing you grew up in Ranelagh, that's where you grew up, and you want to continue to live there, you want to be around the area you grew up in, it's probably not feasible anymore because of property prices. So are this couple, are they kind of up their own arse? Or have they a right to want to live in Dublin and expect to be able to live in Dublin? I'd like to hear from you. 6797 981 is our telephone number. Text or WhatsApp us 0877 98 98 98. If you moved to one of these satellite towns or one of the satellite villages around Dublin, is life really that bad living in Meath or Westmeath or Kildare? Because according to this couple, well, they'd rather not live there. I'd like to hear from you. Text or WhatsApp us 0877 98 98 98. Let's go to Dundalk, speaking of satellite towns. And Jarlath, you're on the line. How are you?
Yeah, Scott.
Do you think it's selfish for people to want to live in Dublin?
I think it is a wee bit selfish, especially, coming from my own opinion. I'm from Dundalk, and the rent inflation prices have gone crazy over the last few years, and I've had to move out of Dundalk on a number of occasions to go and be able to sustain myself in areas where rent prices are a little bit cheaper, and that's something that I think that people from Dublin should be first and foremost looking at, because of the amount that they're paying monthly.
So you're saying that things have got so bad that even Dundalk, which is way outside Dublin, the property prices are too expensive for you in Dundalk?
Well, see, in the last couple of years, the inflation has gone over 100% in rent prices, and that's just in the private sector. And that's something that, I'm currently now back living in Dundalk, and I'm now paying over $1,000 a month for a place that maybe 5 to 6 years ago I would have been paying $700 for. So I'm kind of sickened at the moment being back here, but whereas my first thought is to where can I go to where it's cheaper,
So you wouldn't see it as a failure, Jarlath, if you had to move to the back end of nowhere? You wouldn't see that as a failure?
No, I would see it as a competent decision financially, first and foremost. And I think that anybody who's just too ignorant or too stubborn to move to another part of the country simply just because they were brought up in one part of it is just, in my opinion, a very stupid and selfish way of being.
But they grew up in Dublin, this couple, their parents, from what he says in the message, their parents are from Sandyford, and they're living in Shankill at the moment. They want to be around where they grew up. They want to be around where their parents are.
Well, there's the first mistake, is in Shankill, you're on the dart line, if you're any way across the dart line, you're going to be paying upward of 4 figures every month.
But that's true. Anything on the Dart line or the Lewis line, and you are. I mean, we were lucky where we bought our property. There was no Lewis line at the time. There is now. So it's kind of up the price of the property. So you think they need to be more realistic and get over themselves?
Pretty much, yeah. It's a little bit childish if you ask me, because at the end of the day, I'm sure in time this couple are probably going to have children that they're going to have to think about. And really and truthfully, if they don't already, it'd be shocking to think that they're already putting their financial wants ahead of their children's needs.
Stay there for a second, please, Jarlath. 6797981 is our telephone number. You can text or WhatsApp your comments to 0877989898. So this couple, who I don't know if they're listening or they're not listening, they are looking for a property in Sandyford. So they're renting in Shankill at the moment. They're looking for a property in Sandyford. Now, we were looking up property prices in Sandyford, and I have a list of them in front of me. And like for a two-bedroomed apartment in Sandyford, which I'm looking at the photographs here, and it's a box. It's literally a box. You're talking 305,000 for a two-bedroomed in Carmnicol Court, I think it's called, in Sandyford. 450. So nearly $500,000 for a two-bedroomed, what looks like, again, a box. And then if you want to go for, I presume they want to have a family at some stage, there's a lovely four-bedroomed house for sale in Sandyford. Now, this is a nice-looking house, 4 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, and the price is 475,000. Just think about that. $500,000. They would get a house the similar size if they were to move to Westmeath or Meath. They get a house for probably a fraction of that cost. So that's just some of the prices we're talking about. And one final one, a 4-bedroomed house in Sandyford Downs. Looks like a nice area. The house isn't huge, but it's a 4-bedroomed house, 595,000. I mean, who can afford that? You've want to be a millionaire. Let me go to Simon. Simon, you're on 98FM. How are you?
Oh, good morning, Jim.
Listening to those property prices in Sandyford where this couple want to live, it seems out of the reach of a lot of people.
I say it's the reach of the nearly most of the people, because to get that kind of mortgage, I have no idea how much you have to make per month. Like, to probably what I've no idea really.
But it's not only that. Forgetting about, supposing you get the mortgage and all that, and let's take for instance this house in Sandyford Downs, 595,000, $500,000 for this house. You get the mortgage, that's grand. The repayments on that will be colossal. I would imagine they'd be. No, I'm not a mortgage broker. I don't know. Maybe somebody can work it out. How much would the monthly repayments be on a $500,000 mortgage? But they'd be. It could be $3,000 a month. And that's just a huge amount of pressure to put yourselves under just because you want to live beside where you grew up.
No, I say, like, I think it's a free country, so you can want whatever you want, but all at the end it's all what you can, what you can afford it. And the reason I kind of couldn't understand was because, like, I know they going about this, there's loads of social housing and everything needs to be built, but why it's in Dublin? Like, I know, like, the simple reason is why people, I think, want to live in Dublin, because the most of the jobs are actually in Dublin.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair enough. A lot of people work in Dublin. They want to be within a half an hour of where they work. That's fair enough. Now, your situation was you saved up all your money to buy a house in Clondalkin. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I think we spoke to you on the show before a couple of years ago. Well, your story sounds familiar. And you saved, put everything away, and managed to buy a house in Clondalkin. So you're one of the lucky ones in that you're on the Lewis line. You have a property in Dublin. It's not too far from the city centre. Are you happy with your decision?
I was, yeah. And that's the thing. Like, and just beside us there is this massive green park. Now I can't remember the name, but probably the listeners know. And now they just started to build it. The brand new, it's kind of a brand new estate, just basically outside the park. And outside the park, you can actually, when they're going to build the houses, when you're going to get out in the morning, open your curtains, you're going to see a park in front of you, and they're going to be this massive lake, and all these houses are going to be 3-4 bedrooms, and they're all going to be given away to the social housing. So people who working hard, they cannot afford to live in Dublin, and they have to move out, and then every single day they have to sit for 2-3 hours in the traffic.
And sorry, have you a problem with an estate of social housing being built beside your house?
Well, kind of, yeah.
Oh, but they have to live somewhere. People who can't.
I know, but like, I don't think they're supposed to be kind of living in a capital.
So you don't think people, and this is a conversation for another day, and I don't want to go down this road, but let me just,
I know.
But let me ask you the question. You don't think social housing should be built in the capital, and if somebody is unfortunate enough that they need social housing, that should be all outside the capital?
Oh, yeah, because like to live in a capital, you need to kind of, it's a luxury.
Yes, it is. It is a luxury to live in, and to live in the capital of any country is a luxury. But it kind of seems like you're looking down your nose on these people who are going to be given the housing beside you.
Well, I'm kind of jealous because obviously I had to save all my life and to buy all the house, and I had to invest loads of money into just to make the life livable. And now these people, I know some of them have a general reasons why they couldn't work because they're looking after their relatives or anything. I don't have anything against them, but I know some people, they just, why I should go and find work and get the wages when I can just sit on the social housing list and get a free brand new house.
Okay, but as I said, I don't think there'd be much support for your idea that social housing should all be outside Dublin, and it might be something we'll come back to, Simon. Thanks very much for your call. My God, that's after knocking me for 6. Anybody who's on the social housing list or on the waiting list, they shouldn't be given social housing in Dublin. The capital should be left for people with a mortgage. It's a conversation that I'm sure we will have very soon on the show. Let me go to Bernie. How are you, Bernie?
Hello, Jeremy. How are you? God, he has a neck like a jockey's bay, hasn't he?
Well, I don't know. And it'd be interesting when we do come back to it as a conversation. Will a lot of people agree with him? The way he feels, and it is a conversation for another day, he's saved up, and I remember speaking to him before years ago on the show.
A lot of Irish people feel like that too, Jeremy, because people, they're getting these housing estates shoved up. Do you know what I mean? The people have to live somewhere. Where are they supposed to go?
I suppose he feels he's saved.
But we all saved. I saved myself.
Yeah.
My daughter saved. One of them Portlaoise, one of them Kildare, and the other one is over in Westmeath.
Okay, so 3 daughters, none of them could afford a property in Dublin.
Time, no, because the prices were going crazy.
And where did they want to live? Where are you from originally, Bernie?
I was born on Francis Street and reared in Drimna.
Okay, so the property prices in Drimna now, and I was looking at those as well before the show came on. Property prices in Drimna are very, very high at the moment.
They're going through the roof. Now, we bought this one 32 years ago, March, for 21,500.
You wouldn't get a garden for that now.
You wouldn't get a gate.
Yeah.
I gave them the option of building on because it's quite a lot of land around the house. I'm free, what you call it? Oh, God, I can't remember the word.
Okay, there's a 2-bedroom house on Schlievemore Road in Drimna that I'm looking at here. Lovely house, nice garden as well.
Oh, yeah.
280,000.
And the rest. I believe some of them are gone up to 300 and odd.
Well, that'd be the lower end. There's here's a 3-bedroom on Morn Road.
That's where I am.
Yeah, that's where you are. So, 3-bedroom on Morn Road, 349,950.
That wouldn't surprise me, Jeremy. I'm hearing it all week long about a few of them.
So did your sister...
They're having auctions here now, Jeremy. They're not selling the houses, they're auctioning them off.
So did your daughters feel let down that they had to move outside Dublin? I mean, how's life for them?
I can't remember them saying like, oh God, But I go to Newbridge, it's 40 minutes on the train. I go to Portlaoise, it's an hour. I go to Westmeath, it's 40 minutes. So all the links, all the transport's all there, Jeremy.
But they're a long... I mean, Portlaoise is a long way down, isn't it?
I love it.
No, I'm sure you love visiting, but does your daughter in Portlaoise feel isolated?
No, because she's a great circle of friends around her and she works. And we were only down there 2 weeks ago for the communion. Great day, lovely people. There are a lot of people from Drimna living in Portlaoise as well, do you know?
So she has made a new life for her down in Portlaoise.
She has no other choice because now being on her own with 3 children and having to get everything rebooted and reshooted, so she's not on the street or she's not dependent for social housing at the minute anyway. But she's doing grand, still working. The boys are in everything. The girls in sports, the lot. She does everything that actually a couple should do, but she's doing it on her own. She's a fabulous young one.
Okay, so the 3 daughters all in different counties. One in Laois, one in Kildare. Is that right?
One in Laois, one in Kildare, and one in Westmeath.
And they're happy as Larry.
Well, what can they do? I mean, to sell up them houses and come back to Dublin and not be able to afford still to live in Dublin, but they don't seem to bother them.
Thanks very much for your call, Bernie, and I wish your daughter as well. It seems like they have made for a life for themselves. See, it can be done. Let me go to Susie. Susie, you had to move to a place that I was talking about earlier on about mobile homes. You moved to Gorey.
Yeah.
In County Wexford.
Well, I'm moving next week, but the house wasn't ready yet. So, but a friend of the family bought a house in Gorey because I was living in Bray for 10 years and I got evicted last year.
Was that the landlord put up the price of the rent?
Well, no, he just, I don't know what it was. I think it was either he wanted someone else in or he was selling up.
Okay.
But I was living there for 8 years and I was living somewhere else in Bray for 2 other properties for the last 2 years before that.
And have you bought in Gorey, or are you renting down in Gorey?
No, friends and family bought in Gorey.
Okay.
Because I couldn't find a place in Bray and I wanted to live in Bray or Dublin, but I didn't have a choice in that matter. I had to move to Gorey.
And there was a time years ago where Bray was seen as far away and the property would have been quite cheap in Bray, but nowadays, Bray is on the Dart line. It's a half an hour from the city centre, 40 minutes from the city centre.
Yeah, so handy.
And the property prices in Bray as well are just through the roof, aren't they?
Don't even go there, because I spent all of last year looking, it was horrible, and then in the end I just said, I'm not getting anywhere. So in the end I just said, a friend of the family just said, listen, I'm thinking of buying in Gorey, do you fancy? And I said, well, yeah, I don't have any other choice.
Yeah, and I'm sure living in Bray would have been ideal. Looking at a 3-bedroomed here in Herbert Park in Bray, and it's an average looking house as far as I can see, at 340,000. That obviously was out of the question.
But you know what though, it was the best place I've ever lived. Honest to God, it was so handy, and I suppose all my friends are there as well. So I don't know anyone in Gorey. My partner lives in Enniscorthy, but I don't know anyone in Gorey.
But listen, don't look at it in a negative way. Gorey is an hour down the road. That's all it is. Yeah. It's an hour from Dublin down the road. And you don't know anybody there at the moment. You're going to make a life for yourself down there, and Bray will be a distant memory after a couple of months. Thanks very much for your call, Susie. Huge interest in this. Mark and Kevin, I'll come to you straight after the break. Mark says he was renting in Dublin for years and finally had to throw in the towel. Where did he move to? We'll find out.
98FM's
Dublin Talks
with Des Kelly Interiors. For all the latest trends in carpets, vinyls and wood flooring. Des Kelly Interiors, where quality flooring costs less.
98FM.
It's Jeremy Dixon here with you for the Thursday's edition of 98FM's Dublin Talks. We're discussing whether or not we have become fixated with wanting to live in Dublin. And we're hearing stories from people who've had to move outside Dublin, who would ideally love to live near where they grew up or near where their parents are, but have had to move outside Dublin because of the property prices. Let's have a listen to this WhatsApp voice note.
Hi, Jeremy.
Hi,
Jeremy. Just a thought. A lot of the people that are homeless and living in hotels, just think about this one. If they were prepared to live outside Dublin, we'd have no problem. If they could be housed somewhere else, all the ghost estates and everything. So why shouldn't the people that work and earn a wage be able to buy in Dublin? Just a thought.
It is a thought, but that's a kind of a them and us argument, isn't it?
How's it going, Jeremy?
How are you?
I moved from Dublin down to Kildare. I absolutely love it down there. Everything's cheaper, kind of. But I don't think I'll go back to Dublin. It's bloody too hectic at this stage, so you're going to get used to a little bit of peace and quiet when you do move away. And plus, I'm not that far away from my family when I want to go visit. So I don't know what anybody's problem is moving out of Dublin. It's still bloody Ireland, for God's sake.
It's probably snobbery to that man. That's probably what it is. Let me go to Mark. Mark, you're very welcome along to 98FM. How are you?
How are you getting on? You well?
Now, Mark, you were renting in Dublin for several years. Where were you renting?
We were renting up around Swords there, we were, and I'm originally from Finglas, but we were renting up in Swords because ourselves, both family are from Swords. But then went to start saving for a mortgage. The rent was through the roof, it's just nuts of us. So we couldn't even afford to save. It was a case where you couldn't even afford a holiday, anything like that. We have one kid there, so
literally, you were putting your life on hold to save up for this mortgage, yeah.
Well, even before we started to save for the mortgage, it was still hard, you were paying the rent. The rent was going through the roof, and it worked bit by bit, But we ideally would want to live in Swords, but geez, we only got approval for our mortgage there about a month ago, and ourselves now, Jesus, she's been pulling her hair out every minute that she gets when she comes home from work, and she works hard. She's spending all the time she can on daft, and with our mortgage, what we're after getting, there's not a chance that we'd be able to live around Swords or anywhere like that. So we're like, you know what, we just head off somewhere. So we're after getting a nice place there. So, like, even in hard traffic, it's only up the road. Where we're walking from, it's a 30-minute drive. It's a little piece of heaven. It's just nothing that by there, you know. So it's not bad. And the houses, like, you'd get a fixer upper in Swords probably for about 300 grand.
But by the time you spend money on it, it's
Jesus Christ.
I was looking at the village you're moving to, Athboy. It's past Navan, between Navan and Delvin, and I mean you can get some beautiful. I mean, there's pretty much what looks like a mansion there, a 5-bedroomed house in Athboy for 315 quid. Sure, you wouldn't get a toilet in Dublin for that price, or 315,000. Sorry, yeah.
Now the houses we've been looking at around Dublin, places like that, like you're talking for a 2-bedroom. Like, just put it this way, we were going to buy an apartment, living for a couple of years and move out. So that was 230,000 for the apartment. 2-bedroom apartment, dog box, an absolute dog box. What we're after getting, we're after spending the same amount of money. We're after getting a 4-bedroom house, three bathrooms, huge backyard. House is absolutely beautiful, lovely little estate. I never knew this existed. I just thought it was a tiny little village, and she herself found it. We went up, had a look at it, fell in love with it straight away. And as I said, little piece of heaven. You know?
Absolutely.
And it's a bit of a drive, you know, so not bad.
But you'll make do. I mean, there's a 3-bedroom there, a brand new 3-bedroom for 182,000. A 3-bedroom semi-detached. And I'm just looking at it, and if you were to put that in Sandyford or Swords or whatever, you're talking 500,000 probably. But you know what? You'll make a life for yourself down there, and at least you won't be putting yourself under huge financial pressure. I mean, in an ideal situation, Mark, you would have loved to live in Swords. Do you think people need to start being more realistic, like yourself?
You have to be realistic, like, because our situation now, if we were a bit snobby about it, just right, you know, we want to live in Swords. We're going to buy a 2-bedroom apartment. We have one kid there, so we want to have another kid in the near future. If we were to have a boy, what are we going to do there? So you're stuck in a 2-bedroom apartment. You can't do anything there. You can't. So with the option of moving out, which we did, we're happy with it. We've accepted it. And when it does come around where we move in, we'll have more than enough bedrooms to have another kid and another if need be, or even a little loft for ourselves. Absolutely,
and there's a lot to be said for looking out your window and seeing fields with cows and stuff. Thanks very much, Mark, as opposed to living in a concrete jungle in Dublin. Emma, you moved from Clondalkin quite far afield. You moved to Leitrim because of the house prices.
I did, yeah. It was kind of similar to your last guest there. We'd only just had our first child, our only child, and in the October of 2015, and then our landlord raised our rent on us in the January 2016. So I was off on maternity leave at the time, and I just kind of pushed us that bit too far out, where it was too much of a stretch trying to rent and just live, like not even saving. We hadn't even started to save because the rent was so high. But I think when a child came into the picture, that made a bit more panic to get a bit more sort of settled and have something under our feet.
And how much did you get a property for in Leitrim, if you don't mind me asking?
€400 for a 3-bed semi-detached.
Sorry, say that again?
We rented for €400 in a 3-bed semi-detached house.
$400 a month for a 3-bed?
Yeah.
Wow.
A month, yeah. Now, in the meantime, the same thing happened to us. Our nana raised the rent and it pushed us out to pass because I wasn't working. And we ended up back at home with my mum in Tallaght trying to save for a deposit. But the point I wanted to make, there was one of your guests on there talking about the people from Dublin, and it was, he felt like it was out of ignorance or childishness that they didn't want to leave where they go up. And there's an element of that, and I understand that, and I also understand that it is great to make a change and possibly move past, go further afield from where you go up. But I really struggled living in Leitrim. It wasn't easy, and my husband was the same. We went from having an amazing support network around us
to nobody.
To no one. No friends, no family. We didn't know our neighbours. I was lucky enough that I did have family in the area, but they were working full time, so they weren't around all the time for me, that way. So it's a very hard thing to do, to leave where you love, the people that you love, and reintegrate into a much smaller rural area. You know, like we made the leap. We went proper rural. It was a tiny town where we lived in Carrigallen and Leitrim, and it was beautiful. And we did make friends and meet lovely people. But it was just unfortunate the same thing happened where we weren't able to. We couldn't afford to save anymore and rent at the same time.
So you were being realistic. I hope you can you pick up 98FM down in Leitrim, by the way?
We can't.
Oh, for God's sake, I'll get that sorted for you. You listen to the app, 98fm.com, and you'll hear us down there. Need to get that sorted out. One final call on this. Kevin, you were born in North Dublin and had to move to Navan, and you're saying the commute is a killer, is it?
Yeah, like I understand why people want to live in Dublin. I was originally, before I moved to Navan, renting a 2-bedroom apartment, Glass Navan. I was 15 minutes from my work, regardless of day or time or traffic. Now I'm in Navan. I could be that journey has changed to an hour to an hour and a half quite regularly. So I do understand why people want to live in Dublin. For a commute point of view, like if you have young kids, but even though I finish on plenty of time, by the time I get home, my kids are gone to bed.
Oh, I know.
So if I could afford it, I would love to live back in Dublin.
Sorry, you're being realistic though as well, and I'm sorry for cutting across you, Kevin, because I'm way out of time on that. But that is a problem for people like yourself. You know, you're going to work, and by the time you get home, your kids are tired, and it's a horrible situation. Just in property prices in the city centre. Let's finish off with this WhatsApp voice note.
Hi, Jeremy. I'm 22, and I'm the only one of all my friends or anyone I know my age that actually has their own place, because I relocated from Dublin to Cavan in October, and I didn't want to do it. And I really didn't want to do it, but when it came to it, it was just nearly had no choice, and it's the best thing I've ever done. And I'd highly recommend for people who are like really wanting to get out of the house and wanting to go live somewhere else, wanting to have their own space like that, moving outside of Dublin is probably the best thing you can do. It's at my age, in the early 20s, it's the only way to really get independence anymore.
Wow, fair play to you. I haven't heard of that before. 22-year-old property owner. You see, it is possible. She made the sacrifice. She moved to Cavan. See, here's the thing. You know, I live in Dublin. I'm very lucky that I live in South County Dublin. I'm a half an hour away from my job. But I had to sacrifice size. We live in a very small property. And that's the sacrifice we made because we wanted to live in a certain location. You know, for that same price that we paid for that, we could have moved to a 5-bedroomed house in Cavan or Westmeath, and we made a decision. And you know, nothing is perfect. Nothing is perfect, and you can't have everything in this world unless you are a multi-millionaire. But that has been a fascinating conversation, and I'm sure it's something we'll return to, all about just trying to live in Dublin. I feel sorry for anybody who's trying to get on the property ladder at the moment, or even trying to rent at the moment and wants to live in Dublin, because it just seems like it's a big no-no. But if you're prepared to move to somewhere like Athboy in County Meath, I mean, there you go. 3-bedroom, semi-detached house, brand new, out of the box, 182 grand. You can't go wrong. Thank you very much for all your calls, your comments and your texts. I hope you enjoyed the show today. We're back with the last show of the week tomorrow morning, Friday show. And if you're heading to the Best of Dublin Awards tonight, the best of luck. Myself and Kennedy be there. He's back from his holidays off the plane, and he will be joining me later on tonight at 98FM's Best of Dublin Awards. Who's up next? Oh, Barry's not here. It's Andy Clark. The delectable Andy Clark is up next with some great tunes, including these.
98FM's
Dublin Talks
with Des Kelly Interiors. For all the latest trends in carpets, vinyls and wood flooring. Des Kelly Interiors, where quality flooring costs less.
98FM.